The first warning wasn't a siren. It was a whisper that shouldn't have been mine to hear. Our quarterly strategy session had just adjourned when I stepped into the marble corridor, tablet humming against my palm. Through the half-open break room door, I caught Kyle Baxter, former intern. The scent of fresh blazer still clinging, leaning toward Mr. O'Rourke, our stone-faced CEO. Their voices were low, conspiratorial, punctuated by a quick fist bump. A draft of chilled air crawled up my spine. I walked past without breaking stride. Yet Kyle's last words drifted after me like trapped smoke. Once she's out, we pivot. The pronoun stung, but the chill deepened only minutes later when Outlook pinged. Subject line: Succession Planning and Transition Phase. Sent to my address, clearly by accident, it mapped a leadership shift effective within the next fortnight and listed knowledge handoff to incoming director TBD. My name was nowhere by noon. Facilities had taped a yellow notice across my office door. Workspace under reconfiguration for Phase 2. Inside, diplomas lay stacked like forgotten props, while contractors measured the walls I'd painted victory blue last winter. No one met my eyes. Their silence felt rehearsed. At 2:30 p.m., our engineering huddle assembled in Conference C. Kyle, suddenly chairing the meeting, clicked through a PowerPoint of flowcharts I had designed. When someone asked who would approve next week's security patch, he answered too quickly. "Your predecessor will brief me offline." A ripple of confusion crossed the table. His cheeks blanched. He'd meant mentor, supervisor, anything but the word that sentenced me to history. I said nothing. Silence. I've learned. Stores power the way capacitors store charge. Quietly, precisely, waiting for the circuit that needs it. I held his gaze just long enough for voltage to arc, then returned to my seat. Yet the whisper kept echoing, folding itself into that cold instinct that rarely lies. Something beneath Halotech's polished floors had shifted, and every board in the place seemed ready to creak at once. Beyond the glass wall, Titan Gate's monitors glowed, loyal to the fingerprint they meant to erase. I felt the code watching back. The fortress I forged would either kneel to new hands or bite. I knew which order it awaited. It was strange, the way pride and dread could occupy the same breath. As I sat at the edge of my temporary desk, no longer my office, just a loned corner under flickering fluorescent light, I found myself staring at the Titan Gate interface humming on my screen. Familiar lines of encrypted code blinked like fireflies in a jar. Beautiful, precise, untouchable. I had written every strand of its core logic myself, not with shortcuts or borrowed frameworks, but with the grit that comes from building something no one else believed could exist. Titan Gate wasn't just a security system, it was a living wall. Zero-trust architecture that evaluated every packet, every request, every fingerprint as a potential threat. No exceptions. Not even me. But I'd built in one rule. One root. One identity encoded in biometric layers no algorithm could fake. My fingerprint and my voice, stitched together as the heartbeat of the system. Even the back doors required authentication through me. That wasn't vanity. That was strategy. The late CTO, Alan Price. God. I missed that man's silence more than his words, once told me. "Dorothy, you don't just protect systems, you design them so they can't be betrayed." The day we deployed Titan Gate, he pressed a file into my hand. It was a notarized internal memo with one sentence underlined. "No one touches this but you." I'd honored that promise, even when budget pressure mounted, even when interns like Kyle asked why we didn't move faster, even when other execs begged for limited bypass access in case of emergencies. I said no, and because the system worked flawlessly for 3 years, no one challenged me. Until now. Earlier that morning, Kyle had wandered over to my desk, casual as always, holding a paper cup of coffee like a badge of arrogance. "Hey, Dorothy," he said. "Mind if I take a look at the high-level schematic for Titangate? Just to help my transition." I looked up, forced a smile. "Sure, I'll prep a sanitized version. Need a couple days to redact sensitive fields?" He nodded, but the way his jaw tensed told me he wasn't planning to wait. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed with an automated alert. Unauthorized biometric access attempt. Location, core server room 2B. User, K. Baxter. He'd tried my root console. With what? A lifted fingerprint? A cloned voice fragment? Foolish. Titangate had rejected him instantly, logged the breach attempt, and locked the console for 12 hours. I deleted the alert log from my inbox, but archived it to a private drive. No confrontation. Not yet. Because in that moment, I felt it. Beneath my pride, under the structure I had built with unshakable hands, a quiet hum of warning. Not for what Kyle had done, but for what he didn't yet understand. Titangate didn't just protect data. It remembered everything. The sting didn't come from the subject line. It came from the name in the to field, mine, when it should never have reached me. I was in the middle of drafting the final appendices for the $80 million DoD security audit when the forwarded email slipped into my inbox. It was from someone in finance, one of those rare allies who didn't say much but saw everything. The title read, "Congratulations, Director Appointment and Discretionary Compensation Approval." My heart slowed. Then it dropped. The attached PDF made it impossible to pretend anymore. Kyle Baxter, title, Director of Cybersecurity Operations. Effective immediately. Underneath was a single-line entry. Performance transition bonus. 9,400 ROHs. Dollars. $9,400. That was the number they'd put on my replacement. That was the price tag for a stolen seat and a stolen system. It didn't even round to 5 figures. I reread the document 3 times before moving. My own report, my report, was still open on the screen beside it. 3 months of sleepless nights, midnight server simulations, firewall stress tests. I was preparing Halotech's most sensitive security findings for the Department of Defense, and yet the signature block at the bottom of the email said the full package had already been submitted. Signed by Kyle Baxter. I blinked. Then opened the central archive. The submitted PDF was there, locked and time-stamped, but when I cross-checked it against my local files, I noticed something off. The content was mine, copied almost word for word, but the formatting was inconsistent, clunky. I scanned the metadata. Then the blood drained from my face. Author, Dorothy H. Signed, Digital Cert ID 9428. My digital signature, used without my consent. Kyle had lifted it from prior docs and inserted it into this bastardized version of my work, sending it off as a final submission to the federal client. A criminal risk, a security violation, a violation of me. I felt heat rise to my ears. But I didn't scream. I didn't slam the keyboard or cry in the bathroom stall like I might have done 10 years ago. Instead, I opened a new folder on my encrypted drive, named it False Attribution, Phase 1, dragged the signed PDF inside, added a screenshot of the finance email, dated and tagged it. A few minutes later, another message chimed, this one from the CEO. Subject line, "Thank you for facilitating a smooth transition." There had been no meeting, no formal announcement, no handshake or notice. Just this slow-motion erasure, played out by cowards too polite to say the word fired. I stared at the screen, dry-eyed and still. Not because I was shocked, but because I had already seen this coming. Bitterness didn't burn like fire. It settled like sediment, and I was done letting it bury me. Morning arrived carrying yesterday's sediment of bitterness, and it settled on my shoulders like concrete dust as soon as I badge tapped into the lobby. Human Resources was waiting beside the turnstiles with 2 cardboard crates and a smile so stretched it looked painful. Relocation Day! Dorothy! We've pre-labeled everything to make it seamless. Seamless, apparently, meant exiling me to the transition support area, a narrow alcove wedged between the janitorial closet and the loading dock. No windows, no climate control, just the low thrum of freight elevators and the faint odor of solvent. Someone had taped a laser-printed sign to the gray cubicle wall. Onboarding resource desk. I was the resource. 2 interns wheeled my boxes down the corridor while I followed, clutching my laptop like a life raft. Every footstep echoed with the acoustics of demotion. I tallied each insult, storing it for later detonation. When we passed my old office, I paused. The etched glass bearing my name was gone, replaced with frosted vinyl that read Director Baxter. Inside, sunlight spilled across fresh white orchids, a balloon bouquet, and a glossy placard that declared, "Welcome, Director!" The same space that had cradled Titan Gate's first prototype now smelled of vanilla and ambition. Kyle appeared in the doorway, crisp navy suit, coffee shop sleeve in hand. He grinned as if we were still mentor and mentee. "Dorothy!" He strode over, pressing a paper cup toward me. "Double shot. Oat milk. Figured you'd need it. I know you understand how the company has to move forward with new energy." The humiliation was almost physical, like heat flushing up from my collarbones. I accepted the cup, not to drink it, but to keep my fingers from curling into fists. "Thanks," I managed, voice steady, though I could taste iron behind my teeth. He glanced at my stacked boxes. "Facilities will get you settled. The transition space is temporary. Promise." His tone suggested a mercy he believed he was granting. Then he ducked back inside his office, closing the glass door with a soft click. I exhaled and continued down to the warehouse level, the elevator chiming merrily for every floor of my descent. The transition cubicle was lit by a single buzzing bulb. I slid my laptop onto the dented desk and connected to Titan Gate's admin console. Needing something solid, something still mine, a red notification bloomed. Anomalous biometric attempt detected. User, K. Baxter. Source device, Director Office, keyboard. Possible spoof fingerprint, flagging for review. So he'd tried again, maybe using a silicon overlay, maybe a lifted print from the conference table. Titan Gate, loyal as ever, had refused him, and, crucially, recorded proof of the attempt in immutable logs. My humiliation cooled, replaced by the steady pulse of strategy. I closed the alert, encrypted the log, and placed the coffee cup, now lukewarm, beside my monitor, like a prop. Let them think I was boxed in. They'd soon learn a fortress can fit inside something smaller than a cubicle, a single line of unbreakable code. Waiting. They would regret. The room was quiet except for the low whir of the server fan beside me. My desk, if you could still call it that, sat under a flickering bulb and a vent that coughed more than it breathed. But none of that mattered now. My hands moved with calm, methodical certainty, keys clicking in steady rhythm as the Titan Gate console responded without question. 3 tabs open, one for the backup logs, one for the biometric matrix, and one for what I'd never planned to use, the sub-root failsafe. Titan Gate's original structure was airtight, but I had always built in one backchannel, something that couldn't be accessed through a simple scan or override. It wasn't even visible to the untrained eye. It lived deep within the biometric layer, and only activated under a single condition: my fingerprint and a very specific voice signature, a phrase, said in full. With the correct inflection and cadence, no deep fake could replicate it. Kyle didn't know it existed. The CTO had, and only because I made him promise never to document it. He died with that secret. Now, I was the last thread tying this system together, and I was about to cut it. I adjusted the failsafe settings. If TitanGate detected root access from any source not paired with my voice print, it would lock down every mission-critical system and treat all further requests as hostile. No confirmation dialogue, no admin override. A breath. Then I leaned toward the embedded mic. Let the storm remember its maker. The waveform pulsed, then flattened. A single message flashed in bold red. Voice key accepted. Countdown initiated. 3 hours exactly. 3 hours? That's all. Enough time for Kyle to fumble through his new role. Enough time for the quarterly live stream to begin. And enough time for everyone to believe nothing was wrong. Yet. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply closed the tab and turned to the second screen, one by one. I archived the system access logs. Every fingerprint failure, every unauthorized override attempt, and every change Kyle had pushed since my credentials had been quietly stripped from the master list. I encrypted the folder and transferred it to my personal drive. Upstairs. I could hear the muffled hum of rehearsals, Kyle pacing in front of a camera crew, reciting revenue figures he barely understood. Let them prepare their big moment. Let them pat each other on the back. TitanGate was no longer theirs to hold. It was waiting. At 9:40 a.m. The email arrived. No knock on the door. No HR rep clearing their throat. Just a simple subject line. Notification of position termination. Effective immediately. I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. I clicked it open. 2 short paragraphs. No mention of my years of service, the systems I built, or the national contracts I had secured. Just sterile language and a PDF attachment with the company's logo stamped at the top like a verdict. 5 seconds later, a new message popped up. Kyle Baxter replied to the thread with a single emoji. Okay, hand. That was it. No words, no explanation, no professionalism, just a smug little gesture sent from 2 floors up, where he was likely sipping his 4th espresso and preparing for his big moment in front of the cameras. I stared at the screen. Then I calmly pushed back my chair, stood, and looked around at the gray walls of my exile cubicle, the hum of the freight elevator behind me, the half-working ceiling light. It all suddenly felt irrelevant. I opened TitanGate one last time. The interface blinked to life. Obedient as always. Every component, every protocol, every subroutine I'd built with precision over the past 6 years was still intact, still mine. I placed my finger on the scanner one last time. The system glowed blue. I leaned toward the mic. I didn't speak this time. I didn't need to. The voice key had already been logged. The failsafe was counting down. 3 hours. Exactly. From the moment I first whispered those words. TitanGate responded as if everything was normal. The logs showed clean status. All access requests looked approved. It was behaving, for now. And that was the point. I closed the program, removed my USB, picked up my laptop. I didn't bother powering it down. No one stopped me. No one said goodbye. I walked past the empty hallway, past the display case with the company's mission statement engraved in steel. Integrity, innovation, impact. I walked out with none of those things left behind. Outside. The sky was clear, the air sharp. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Kyle thought it was over, that the position had changed hands, that control had been passed on. But he had no idea. Everything still looked fine. Every system still hummed. But the timer was running. I had built the storm to wait, and when the clock hit 0, it wouldn't be quiet anymore. The glass lobby clock ticked past 10:29 when I slipped into the street-side cafe opposite Halo Tech. I ordered black coffee and faced the window, earbuds in, laptop open to the public investor stream, inside headquarters. Final cables were taped down, lights adjusted, and Kyle Baxter brushed invisible lint from his lapel. 10:30 a.m. landed like a starter pistol. The countdown I'd armed 2 hours earlier reached zero. Though no one on stage had reason to suspect it, Kyle greeted shareholders with practiced warmth, reciting record quarterly growth while slides flicked across the big screen behind him. Slide 4 never appeared. The projector froze, then flashed charcoal, then everything went black. A harsh system tone rang over the auditorium speakers, replacing Kyle's microphone feed. On every monitor, TitanGate printed a single sentence in white on red. Root access invalid. Security lockdown in progress. Network cameras kept rolling, broadcasting stunned silence to thousands of investors who seconds earlier had been clapping. Backstage, the production team hammered keyboards, but login prompts returned the same denial, no matter the credentials. Upstairs, executive doors sealed with dull mechanical thuds. The biometric locks demanded verification they could never receive. Conference phones dropped. CAD servers vanished from the network map, and the CRM dashboard spun like a jammed slot machine. The chat application bloomed with panicked questions, everything from shipping delays to lost keynote scripts. I sipped my coffee, watching reflections of blue and red status lights ripple across the lobby glass. No adrenaline, only the steady certainty of physics meeting arrogance. Kyle's voice, now off mic, leaked faintly through an open conference feed. "Try your passcode again. There has to be a back door." Someone must have sprinted to the server room for a manual reset. TitanGate registered that attempt too, and the inner door clamped shut before the second swipe finished. Security footage later would show Kyle trapped inside, pounding on reinforced glass that no longer recognized his borrowed authority. Outside the sealed chamber, motion lights dimmed as if to underline the verdict. I closed my laptop, slid it into my bag, and stepped to the counter for a refill. Behind me, the cafe television, tuned to the same livestream, showed a frozen Halotech logo and a spinning buffering wheel. Patrons glanced up, then back to their phones, unaware they were witnessing the first fracture of a corporate monolith. My refill arrived steaming. The barista apologized for the delay. I thanked her, sat again, and let the cup warm my palms. Inside the fortress, across the street, executives barked orders that went nowhere. Engineers rebooted machines that refused to trust them, and investors flooded the comment feed with disbelief. Systems that had hummed flawlessly for years now interpreted every command as a threat because the only voice they obeyed was walking away. The irony would be lost on them until the post-mortem, when someone finally traced the lockdown to a line of code labeled simply, "History." For now, they felt confusion blooming into raw fear, and fear hardening into corporate panic. Across the street, Halotech's windows still flashed emergency crimson when I reached my apartment. I set my bag on the kitchen counter, opened the lid, and brought TitanGate's heartbeat back onto the screen. The lockdown was holding. Every node that tried to bypass the new rule now appeared in a neat column marked "Denied." Good. Time for the second fuse. I opened a terminal, navigated to the repository, and zipped the clean source. 10,000 files, 6 years of nights, weekends, and coffee-stained schematics. I titled the release TitanGate Community Edition. Next. A README. For the people, for integrity. I hit upload. Packets shot across the backbone, splitting like sparks from a welder. Within 30 seconds, a notification beeped. University of Michigan forked the repository. Another, a cybersecurity collective in Nairobi, started. Then venture-backed startup HelixSec cloned the code, followed by a professor at MIT who opened an issue titled "Elegant Approach to Immutable Audit Trails." Each ping was a tiny explosion, and together they sounded like freedom. I switched to email. My inbox was blooming faster than any denial of service attack. Subject, speaking opportunity at Black Hat. Subject, interested in collaboration for humanitarian data vaults. One firm offered a signing bonus larger than Kyle's entire promotion. Then the unexpected arrived. Subject, CTO role, Open Ethos Initiative. The body read, "We don't just want your software. We want the ethic that built it, equity, autonomy, and board seat included." I leaned back, feeling the weight of the week lift off my shoulders. Outside, sirens echoed toward Halo Tech, but here the air smelled of rain and renewal. To mark the moment, I opened a fresh commit and appended a single comment. When walls become prisons, share the blueprints. Notifications kept arriving. Universities, nonprofits, hobbyists, governments, each a matchstick catching the flame of an idea liberated from corporate vaults. In the corner of the screen, Titan Gate displayed one final status: lockdown active. Root trust remains unbroken. I closed the laptop, watching clouds roll past the open window. Somewhere behind those clouds, the sun was setting on Halo Tech. For me, it was rising. I took a breath, slow and steady, tasting the spark of something new. Not revenge, but release. Burning bright, and with every clone, every fork, the blaze spread, writing my name in commit histories the world could read. Kyle might still be hammering on locked glass, begging for credentials. Yet outside that cage, the future had already shifted. The fortress he coveted now belonged to everyone, and the key was trust, not ownership. I raised my cup of coffee in a silent toast to every developer downloading hope, and to the integrity that would keep them honest. Flame is only dangerous. By the time the second morning rolled in, the number had settled. $48.3 million in contracts canceled within 36 hours. 3 government agencies pulled out first, then came the Aerospace Defense Group. Their statements were careful, sterile, pending internal review. Reassessing vendor trust. Security continuity no longer guaranteed. But the meaning was plain. They were done with Halo Tech. Kyle didn't survive the week. No press release. No farewell post. One morning, he was still listed on the company site. By noon, his name vanished from the org chart like it had never existed. No one said the word terminated. The system simply erased him the way he had tried to erase me. The CEO wasn't so lucky. He tried to face the cameras, sat behind a desk with fake plants and a trembling teleprompter. He opened with, "We are committed to transparency." But his voice cracked halfway through the sentence. Investors wanted answers. Clients wanted guarantees. He had neither. I didn't watch live. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened my archive folder and pulled up a recording, dated 11 months earlier, the final internal meeting before Titan Gate was deployed. In it, the CEO leaned back, confident, voice crisp. "We're betting everything on this system. And that means we're trusting Dorothy Hayes to be its guardian. No one else touches the root. That's the line." That file had sat quietly on my drive for almost a year. Now, I posted it to a public thread titled, "For the Record." It spread fast. By afternoon, a prominent shareholder, someone who once praised Kyle for bringing fresh energy, announced they were divesting. Their statement was short but sharp. They fired the one who built the wall. Now they're standing outside of it. I didn't gloat. I didn't post any follow-up. I simply turned off notifications and brewed another cup of coffee. Halo Tech would spend the next few months chasing audits, chasing apologies, chasing shadows. But the damage was done. Their silence when they cut me had been surgical. Mine was colder. I hadn't shouted. I hadn't threatened. I had built the system that secured them, and I let it forget who they were. That's what made it beautiful. The fall wasn't loud. It was precise. No fire, no crash, just a slow-motion deletion, line by line, and I was still here, watching, waiting, satisfied. 1 month later, I sat in my new office, 27th floor. Corner window. Soft light pouring in over clean white walls, and shelves still waiting for books I hadn't unpacked. No orchids, no balloons, just a quiet screen in front of me, displaying the line I'd read 100 times already. Titan Gate Community Edition. Protected by D.H. The logo pulsed gently in the corner. No longer hidden inside corporate firewalls, but living freely in thousands of forks and repositories around the world. In a single month. It had been adopted by 6 universities, 2 emergency medical data centers, and an open-source global election integrity project. I hadn't just released code. I'd released a philosophy that security shouldn't belong to the highest bidder, but to the most honest architect. An email pinged. Subject line: "You changed everything." The body was short. Simple. A 19-year-old programmer from São Paulo wrote, "I studied Titan Gate all week. I never thought I'd understand code like this. Thank you for not keeping it locked away." I paused, then typed back, "Protect it. And if they ever forget who built it, make sure they remember the storm." I hit send. Behind me. The office door creaked open. My new assistant held a notebook and a smile. "They're ready for your keynote in 10. "Coming," I said, standing slowly. My jacket still hung on the coat rack, but I didn't put it on. I walked out in just my blouse. The air cool against my arms, clean and weightless. As I stepped into the hallway, a monitor flickered on near the elevator. A security training video queued up for a new hire. I recognized the freeze frame instantly. Halo Tech's live stream from that day, frozen mid-glitch. Kyle's mouth open in confusion. The caption read, "Case Study, Root Trust Failure, based on the work of Dorothy Hayes." I didn't stop to watch. I didn't need to. Some storms leave destruction, others leave blueprints. And I chose to build. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt underestimated, silenced, or replaced, remember, your value doesn't disappear just because someone else fails to see it. Drop a comment if you've ever built something powerful and been told to step aside. Hit like. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories where justice comes in silence and leaves an echo.